First of all, district administrators really have gone through a very difficult process over the last several days, and we do come to you today with heavy hearts for Booker T. Washington's students, for their dedicated staff, and for student athletes. Booker T. Washington High School is one of the top schools in the nation. It is a vital point of pride for Tulsa Public Schools. It really is the flagship school for TPS and for the state. It is one of Newsweek magazine's top 100 high schools since 2005. They have won the Academic Bowl National Championship in 2008. They were named a National Blue Ribbon School just last month. The district and the community expect leaders of all TPS schools and programs to be sterling examples of ethical and moral dedication to students and to put students first. On October the 13th, Athletic Director Stephanie Spring did receive information about possible athletic eligibility violations at Booker T. Washington High School. Dr. Spring immediately began a thorough investigation, going beyond the initial allegation and uncovering additional, more severe violations. She handed over her findings to Kevin Burr, who is the area superintendent in charge of high schools, and our board attorney who involved the notified parties. Once the investigations and interviews were complete, Mr. Burr turned his findings and recommendations over to me. Our first concern throughout this whole process has absolutely been for the students and to provide our students and their families all of their rights and make sure that they have a right to immediate and to complete information. We wanted to be very thorough in this whole process. Our students and their families have a right to expect all of our leaders to be knowledgeable and to be ethical. Our students and their families have a right to expect all students to be treated equitably in accordance with rules and guidelines set forth by the school, the district, and the state. We did find some athletic eligibility violations. We found that 5 students were allowed to compete. 5 students were allowed to compete in OSSAA governed activities. 2 students reside in a neighboring community and did not have the proper paperwork required by OSSAA. 1 student resides in an adjacent school district and did not have the proper paperwork. 1 student's residence was outside TPS boundaries, and a private school student was allowed to compete without the necessary OSSAA paperwork. You will be provided this information. An additional student was enrolled at Booker T. Washington and was allowed to participate in the spring football game while not yet is enrolled as a student at Booker T. Washington. And we also have determined that weekly eligibility checks, which were supposed to commence on September 14th, did not begin until October the 12th. So, other recruiting violations, or these recruiting violations, 1 student athlete was being transported, he was not eligible, and he was being transported 45 miles each way from a neighboring community daily to Booker T. Washington. That is considered a Rule 9 violation. 1 student from a Tulsa private school, again, was allowed to participate in spring football practice. The student was allowed to participate in 4 practices and in the scrimmage. That is also a Rule 9 violation. Under the sanctions, one of the most difficult aspects of this type of investigation would be the devastating impact that decisions that adults have made, the impact that it has on children. And again, that is where our priority is, and we are very concerned, and we will be paying very close attention to the needs of the student. But here's what penalties. We are self-reporting this to the OSSAA, and here are the penalties that we will be recommending along with those. First of all, head football coach and co-athletic director Antoine Jemerson has accepted my recommendation that he be removed from his responsibilities in all Booker T. Washington and Tulsa Public Schools football planning, practices, games, and media activity for the balance of the 09 and 10 school year. And there are some things that go along with that, but he basically will not be having any of his responsibilities or activities during the 09-010 school year, which would include communications with coaching staff, that he will be removed as the site athletic director, that his extra duty pay will reflect that, and all of those things that would go with that. We also have another coach, an assistant coach at Booker T. Washington High School, Scott Gilkey. Scott Gilkey will be removed from participating in all Booker T. Washington and Tulsa Public Schools football game and track, planning, practices, games, and media activity. And also that Mr. Iota Butch Fisher Jr. Announced today that he has voluntarily resigned from his responsibilities in all Booker T. Washington and Tulsa Public Schools athletic, planning, practice, games, and media activity. Coach Brian Howell, Booker T. Washington softball coach, will be placed on district probationary status. He will undergo training as to his Rule 9 obligations before his probation with the district will be removed. And lastly, Mr. Michael Johnson, who is the principal at Booker T. Washington, will be removed from any and all duties and responsibilities at Booker T. Washington that are assigned with the athletic functions in the school district. All of the aforementioned individuals will undergo training on OSSAA athletic rules and eligibility, Title IX, etc. There are also penalties that we will be recommending that will not be specific to any individuals. And some of those penalties, I'm not going to go through the entire list, that will be made available to you, that the entire Booker T. Washington football program will be put on warning status by the OSSAA. We will forfeit 5 ninth grade football games from the 09 season. We will forfeit 2 varsity football games from the 09 season, and we will forfeit 13 varsity softball games from the 09 season. And we have some athletes who will be declared ineligible as well. There will be required training for all TPS athletic directors, principals, assistant principals, coaches, and site treasurers on OSAA regulations on all TPS athletic policies and on ethics in school activities, and this training will begin in November. We are in the process of taking a look at Booker T. Washington admission policies. We will look into adding the new student form as a requirement for every single athlete. We do understand your need for information today, and we're trying to be as comprehensive as we can be because we realize the importance and the severity of this issue. I would respectfully ask that we not approach students. I would respectfully ask that students be allowed to come together and have privacy and not have that privacy violated. We will continue in the best interest of students, and we will keep the students' interest first and foremost. We will continue to provide information through the Service Center, through the Athletic Director's Office, as well as through the Public Information Office, so that we can protect the Booker T. Washington campus from any disruptions. The kids need to be allowed to go to school with normal routines, and the athletes need to be allowed to go about their normal routines. We will do all we can to make sure that you have all of the information that you need. So until further notice, football practices at Booker T. Washington will be open only to family members. I ask you, as far as contacting students outside of school, I ask you to please be sensitive to the fact that these allegations concern the actions of adults and not kids, and I would hate to see students pressured in any way. So that's the gist of what we are talking about. Accompanying me today is the Area Superintendent for High Schools, Kevin Burr, and I would like to thank Mr. Burr for the exhaustive work that he has put into this investigation. I announced when I was contacted by the press on Saturday that we would be very thorough in our investigation. I believe we have been very thorough in that investigation. I announced nothing would be swept under the rug. Nothing has been. Rather, we are trying to act in an ethical manner and reveal all information that we possibly have and recommend to the OSSA what would be appropriate action.